Hey everybody, welcome to Fac Attack, brought to you by Muscle Meds and starring the one and only IFBB Pro and contest prep coach extraordinaire, Fahkri Mubarak. What's up, Fac?
Hi, Ron. How you doing, man? I'm doing well, man. Thank you.
Doing well. So you came up with an excellent topic today. I want to start this by saying we're not prescribing, we're not telling anyone to use PEDs. We are giving information today, opinions, and you have a wealth of experience yourself as a pro bodybuilder, having coached how many thousands of people at this point? Like 10,000?
Oh, close like to 3,500.
Wow. Okay. So many competitors across various divisions.
Yeah.
So very few people are as qualified to speak with authority on this topic as you. And it's a great topic. And gosh, where to start? So it's talking about proper, appropriate, reasonable PED dosages, because we have so much crap online. Anybody can go online and say, hey, I know Ronnie Coleman's cycle. Hey, I know Big Rami's cycle, and here it is. And they're just pulling it out of their ass. But people are going to believe it, and they'll be, yep, that's it. That's what they're taking, especially if it's super high doses. They're more apt and inclined to believe it because that's what they want to believe. But, you've told me before, you have cycles. We're not going to name names, of course, but you have things on your phone of what certain clients that you've worked with in the past have used, and people would not believe it because the amounts aren't as dramatic, as extreme as what they want to believe. So let's preface this whole thing with, there is a group of people called the genetic elite who are hyper responders, and they do not need extraordinary amounts of PEDs. Would you agree to that?
Yeah, definitely do. I have really good genetics. I wouldn't say I had amazing genetics, but I had good to great genetics.
Yeah.
So it's crazy because you find out that how your body filtrates protein, right? How your kidneys work. So when I went higher on PEDs, my filtration rate, so that means there was more protein in my urine, and protein in urine is not good at all. It's supposed to be at 0.
Wow.
So when I went higher on PEDs, the protein in my urine started appearing more because my body was synthesizing the protein at a higher rate. And that's what it creates of 1.3, a normal creatine, a normal GFR at that age of whatever it was, 90, 94. But yeah, it's something that people don't look at as far as how much protein your body is taking in and how fast your body synthesizes protein.
Okay. So yeah, let's get right into it, because we want to cover both men and women, but let's start off with the division where most people would assume, and probably rightfully so, the highest doses are used, and we're talking about open bodybuilding, no weight limits, guys competing anywhere from 220 to 300 pounds, big guys. The assumption among a lot of the people, they look at someone like that and say, well, they must be on 5 grams of test and 3 grams of tren and 4 grams. I hear these crazy things that people put out there, and they're absolutely convinced with nothing to back it up that has to be the case. So let's talk first about open bodybuilding and what a reasonable, proper cycle might look like for someone that's competing at that level.
So before we start this conversation, I just want to say that everybody in this industry knows I'm a good guy. I'm an ethical guy. I'm a good guy. I'm an honest person. So there's no reason for me to come on the air with you, Ron, and bullshit people, because at the end of the day, this is going to sound mean. And the reason why I open my sentences with being a good guy is, at the end of the day, if somebody gets sick, if somebody passes away, if somebody something happens to them, it has nothing to do with my life. I'm not going to miss sleep. I'm not going to miss a meal. I'm not going to miss anything. So for me to be on the air telling you guys like what are the proper dosages is because I care, right? I care not to see people get sick. I care not to see people, die. So it's something that I wanted to do with you on this show. Again, I don't mean to be mean, but that is the truth. So, I'm not selling anything. We're not selling anything. We're not selling you a kit to like save your health. We're not selling you gear, none of that stuff. We're giving you honest advice.
Yeah. No reason to lie. Like I said, people, there's no advantage for you or for me, but especially for you, you're the one that's going to be giving out numbers here. There's literally no advantage for you to say this amount when it's a lesser amount that people believe, because you're just spitting facts here. So you've worked with guys at the Olympia level, some of the biggest, most accomplished pro bodybuilders in the world. I'm sure some of them do go overboard and use more than they need, but that doesn't mean that that's what they needed. That's just, in their case, what they thought they needed. So what would someone like that actually need that would keep them, we're not saying this is a healthy way to do it. There's no healthy way to, we're talking about abuse, because steroids were made for legitimate medical purposes. They weren't designed to get people 300 pounds ripped. So the way that bodybuilders use them, all bodybuilders, technically that's abuse. But we can mitigate the risk factor somewhat by being a little more conservative. So if you're working with somebody, even at the highest level, we got the Mr. Olympia coming up, somebody doing that show, he's competing around 260, big guy, tons of muscle, and he's up against the very best in the world. What would a cycle like that, if you were laying it out for him, look like?
Well, can we break it down per compounds?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's better that way. So the first one I have on the list is Test, right? So Test is like the king of all PEDs, right?
Yeah.
Well, for the exception of insulin, because insulin is stronger than Test. But Test itself is, as far as the PED steroid, the minimum amount to make gains is 500, right? That's what we're talking about, the minimum amount. So once you start getting to 750 and 1,000 is when you start getting higher, more muscle mass, getting stronger. But that takes time, right? You're not going to go from like 0 to like 1,000, which is what most kids do. Nevertheless, talking about guys on the Olympia stage right now, we're talking about, working your way up, because if you go up from 0 to like 1,000, of 0 to 750, and 2 weeks later, you're like, well, I'm still not making gains at 750. So let me go up to 1,000. What are you going to do in a couple of years? So my sweet spot was 1,000 megs. Yeah, I did go up to 2,000 megs. I did. I'm not gonna lie, But at 2,000 megs, I got up to around, let's say 240, 250. Okay. But I was already training for a long amount of time. But when I was making my highest gains, 250, 260, 270, 286 was my highest weight. I was at 1,000 megs a test. So anything over 1,000 megs a test, you're pushing the envelope. Now, guys on the Olympia stage are probably, and I hate, this is a problem because like everybody wants to be on the Olympia stage. Some guys are doing 1,000 megs, because I've worked with Hall of Fame bodybuilders that were doing 1,000 megs, right? And I'm talking about really Hall of Fame bodybuilders. We're not talking about guys who just competed. Guys that just won shows and they compete against Ronnie and Dexter and Flex and these guys. Some of these guys are doing 1,000 megs. Is 1,500 a lot? Yeah, that's already pushing the envelope when you're talking about tests at about 1,500. Now, I work with a couple of guys that, I guess they were doing this in their prime, but when they came back, they wanted to make a comeback with me, and I looked at what they were doing. They were doing 5 grams.
Wow.
Yeah, they were doing 5,000 milligrams. Wow. And these guys never won shows in IFBB. So the guys that won shows and the guys that were in the Hall of Fame or in the Hall of Fame were doing 1,000, 1,500. So I don't, and myself, like I said, man, I was 286 pounds at 5'5", and I was not fat. I was in good condition. I've trained with a lot of people. I've prepped a lot of people. So I don't think more than 1,500 is a lot, man. That's a lot of tests. 1,000 is enough to grow, especially if you're adding the other compounds we're going to talk about.
Okay. So let's keep it there. Let's stick to the compounds. So I'm assuming, correct me, please, if you go down the line of the divisions where less mass is called for, we don't have, in bodybuilding, in men's side, we don't have that many divisions. 212 would probably be similar because they're not really smaller. They're just shorter. They carry as much muscle mass. You would have been could you have made, you could have done 212 had there been that division, but you hadn't been correct.
My first couple of years, yeah.
First couple of years. So let's move down to like classic physique, which is hugely popular. These guys have a weight cap. They can't get too big, too heavy, or else they're not allowed to compete. So would they also have around the same 1,000 to a max of 1,500, or would these guys use less?
So here's the thing, man. Like when it comes to tests, and I've always been in big time bodybuilding gyms. When it comes to gear overall, it's just there's like a certain number, right? So like 1,000 milligrams, 1,250. That's like that's like, well, we have to hit that much. And to be honest, Ron, you know, I think we talked about this once. Classical physique and men's physique has always existed, always, right? But those were the guys that just didn't compete. They were, because it wasn't a class for them, right? But the physique itself, you saw guys in the gym that had great classical physiques when we were younger, right? Before the class existed. We saw guys in the gym that had great men's physiques. They just didn't grow. So if you're able to grow, like we talked earlier, you know, you're a genetical freak, then yeah, you need to use less, because you're not going to make the weight cap, especially now with men's physique also coming up with a weight cap and high cap. I think it's starting next year. You know, so the genetical freaks are using less. They're using 500. My guys, my physique guys are 500, 750. You know, even some of my classical physique guys, 500, 750. And these guys have great shape. But there's guys that abuse, because the abuse comes from, well, I'm not growing, right? So if I'm taking 500, I'm not growing. If I'm taking 1,000, I'm not growing. If I'm taking 1,500, I'm not growing. And the problem with bodybuilding is that, like, when you're a failed athlete in baseball, you know, you can't hit the ball. When you're a failed athlete in basketball, you know, you can't shoot the 3-pointer, you can't dunk. When you're a failed athlete in any sport, in track and field, you're fucking slow. You can't run as fast as everybody else. But the problem with the sport, man, is that if this is not enough, I'm gonna buy the big 24 pack in Costco, and I'm gonna take the whole 24 pack. And that's not how it works in this sport, man. Especially if you're not growing at a certain amount of gear, you're just getting yourself sick, man. And to answer your question, I know I go off topic a lot. I talk a lot, but to answer your question, they should be taking less. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to stick to that too long either. But we say this all the time. But you're right. Bodybuilding is a sport where it's, you know, genetics are so critical. They're so critical. I hate to throw a number out there, but like 90% of bodybuilding success, genetics. The genetics, you get all these guys with great genetics, and then that's when things like who works harder starts. But in the very beginning, you can weed out at the local, regional level just based on genetics. The genetics, people rise to the top very, very quickly. Then as the higher up the food chain they go, it gets tougher for them. But the people that do poorly in bodybuilding, they can't accept that it's a genetic limitation, because you can't change your genetics. It's always easier to say, well, that guy that beat me was on way more gear than I was, or better gear. It's hard to accept. It's a very hard reality to accept for a lot of guys, that this isn't for you. You're not meant to be, you're never going to look like these guys. You could take all the drugs in the world. And we've both known people who did take all the drugs in the world. They still sucked. They still got last call out. It doesn't, you have to have that. But let's move on. So,
Ron, like us, let's say me and you, right? Me and you busted our asses in bodybuilding, right? Yeah. We did what we had to do. We couldn't look like Phil Heath.
Right.
We couldn't look like Jay Cutler. We couldn't look like Ronnie Coleman, right? No matter what we did, we weren't going to look like them. So we had to accept that and be the best bodybuilders we could be. And it's really hard to accept, because, again, there's gear, there's PEDs involved in the sport. So if I'm not making the changes, that means they're doing 5,000 milligrams of test. They're doing, the rest of the compounds we're going to talk about. They're doing much more of those.
Yeah,
that's the observation.
So I don't know if we're going to talk about women and testosterone, because
okay.
Typically, I know it's used at the once we get into like the open women's bodybuilding, I have no doubt that it's used at that level, but other divisions, because they have so many divisions, starting from bikini, which is the least amount of muscle, figure, women's physique, wellness. I'm not even sure where to put wellness on that scale, honestly. And then women's bodybuilding, they're the biggest. So is test used? Should it be used? Can it be used in a reasonable way by any of these women in any of those divisions?
So my client this year, Renee Marvin, she finished third at the New York Pro, and I think she finished 11th at Phoenix, the Rise of Phoenix. And that show had 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Olympians on the show. Yeah. She's never used tests. We don't use tests with her, and she's a really good bodybuilder, but yeah, so with her, I've never used tests. Like if somebody comes to me and say, listen, I'm on this and I'm on that, it's my decision, and it's my ethical decision to decide whether I want to work with them or not. I don't need clients. I don't need to destroy people. I don't need to end lives. I don't need to destroy femininity, virtualization. I don't need to do none of that stuff. So when a woman comes to me, I have worked with 2 women that were on a high amount of tests. They were between 500 to 750. They were on the Olympia stage, you know, and I did each one of them. We did 2 preps, and I just didn't feel comfortable because I need to do more of this. I need to do more of that. And I'm like, I can't. I just can't, right? You know, so I don't think test is necessary. Well, you know what? Wait, hold on a second. It's also a decision on their part, not on my part, but on their part. And I've heard this many times. Well, you know what? I don't care about femininity. I'm an athlete.
Yep.
I care about winning.
Right.
And you have to respect that because that's their decision. It's their lives and it's their body. Right. But I don't have to be a part of it. So it's my decision to step back and say, I can't work with you. Right. So you can't, some of these women that look a certain way and talk a certain way and things that people make fun of, you can't make fun of them because that's their decision. That's their lives. That's their bodies.
Yeah. And I get that. And we do. It's easy to poke fun when you see a woman, or you hear a woman, and the voice is like that. Or you can tell a lot of them in women's bodybuilding, they have wigs because they've lost, their hairs receded or whatever. They've gotten, the face has changed mainly from the growth hormone. I think the nose, the brows, you see facial changes. But, I've talked to them about some of them have been very frank and candid with me. And they say, you know what? The guys aren't judged by how their face looks or how they sound. This is a sport. It's an athletic competition. Why do I have to look like, Miss America to place well? It's my body that's being judged. So, yeah, I respect that. It's supposed to be a sport about physique competition. And, it's not a beauty pageant. I mean, we've had some ugly guys who have won.
Yeah, it's true.
No names, but they're not judged. We got some great.
And not to say that the women are ugly at all. It's just, it's because some people are attracted to that, right? So ugly's in the mind of the beholder, right? We're not saying the women are ugly or anything like that. It's just that's their decision. They're athletes, and as an athlete, you're gonna push yourself, especially in the sport, to the max amount that you can to try to win, and that's the bottom line.
Yeah, let's say objectively, you don't think you can say ugly. Like you can't even say fat anymore. It's like a bad word now. But yeah, but there've been guys who have been facially not very attractive men, and it didn't matter. It's their body, it's their physique that's being judged. And we do have some guys that are just, look like movie stars. They were just blessed like that. All right, so let's move on to what is your next compound fact?
My next favorite compound is equipoise, EQ. So with EQ, my highest dosage of EQ is 600 milligrams. I think 600 milligrams is enough EQ. If you think about it, it used to come in 50 megs, right? the original EQ.
I had Laura balling from Mexico.
Yes.
Like this big.
Yes, it was the Gator ball, the Mexican one also. The Gator ball came from Colombia. The American one, I forgot what it was called. Squib. It was Squib. It came 50 megs. So when I started seeing these EQs popping up at 200 megs, I was like, holy shit, because we used to take 3 cc's and it was 150 megs. And we used to make some crazy changes, Ron, right? Because we were all vascular and all strong. So when it started coming out with 20 meg, with 200 megs, I guess the concept was, well, if I took 3 cc's with 150, I'm gonna take 3 cc's with 200, right, to make it 600. Yeah. But I think that's the highest amount. EQ is also used. I don't use it. It's also used with wellness competitors. I've heard coaches say, well, it's given to horses, and wellness competitors look like horses, so they might as well take it.
That makes sense. I do think of horses every time I see them. I'm not being mean, but you see those giant glutes and the giant quads and hams and calves. I'm reminded like of a prize racehorse, but so
I think that's an easy explanation to confirm why somebody should take it, right? Because it's for horses and it's gonna make it look like horses. I mean, it's horrible to explain that to a woman, but some competitors are just, they don't care, right? So EQ is used for females, wellness. EQ is used for female bodybuilders. I've used EQ for female bodybuilders. And yeah, I mean, that's my second favorite bulking drug, and also my prep gear. I keep it in there until like a few weeks out.
So so you said, 600 is about the sweet spot for a male competitor. What would women typically be using?
So women use about 200 milligrams. Typically, I mean, anything higher than that gets a little crazy. Yeah. But for guys, 600, I think it is a good amount. It's a high amount. It's a good amount. Again, we used to use 150 back in the days. Yeah. So we're using 600 now. that's a lot more. So I mean, I've gotten a lot of gains from them. My clients have gotten a lot of gains from there. So the numbers I've given you are numbers that the numbers I'm going to give you and have given you are numbers that I've taken and what I usually give my clients as well, because I'm not going to give them anything higher than I've done, right? You know, if you go higher, yeah, I've experimented with higher drugs because because of it, I'm able to make a conscious decision, an ethical decision on what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah, I got to backtrack. I screwed up. Lorabalin was actually a veterinary version of nandrolone deca, wasn't it? You're right. Ganabol was the only one that I used to use. It was equipoise. So
yeah, it was the brown bottle.
Yeah, somebody will correct me on that with the picture of like a horse, a pig, and a cow on the bottom.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a goat on there. So okay, we've covered test and equipoise. What do you got next?
Tren is also used a lot. Tren is very toxic, you know, so you have to be careful with Tren. Again, Tren comes from what was the name of the little ampoules?
Parabolin, the old time.
Parabolin, yeah. So some of you guys aren't old enough to remember, but parabolin was hex Tren, and it actually had a skull with an X on it. You know, so I mean that's a poisonous sign right there. But we used to take, it was 76 milligrams each amp, and we would take 2 to 3 amps per week, and we would make extraordinary changes. You know, nowadays people are doing 400 to 600 milligrams of Tren. I think 600 milligrams of Tren is an extreme amount, but I have guys in the gym that tell me they're taking 800, we're taking 900, we're taking 1,000. I've seen professional bodybuilders take up to 1,000 milligrams of Tren, and I just think that's an insane amount. Tren is also used for wellness competitors, female bodybuilders at lower amounts. It's too harsh for me to use for females. I prefer other compounds for females, but Tren is really big as far as both off season and prep itself. But I mean, personally speaking, 600 megs is a lot, and that's the highest I've been.
That's very high. I mean, it's so powerful. It's so potent on a milligram per milligram basis. In the past, I think I tried doing like 700 or 800 one time. I didn't see any more results physique wise than when I was using like 300, 350. I just felt a lot more of the side effects, like the night sweats and the insomnia, and just feeling like it makes you crazy. Is probably a general. I don't think you can say crazy anymore. That's a bad word now too.
Anxiety gives you anxiety.
You're like something's wrong. You have this feeling like something's not right, and there's nothing going on to give you that anxiety or that feeling, but you're just going out of your mind. It makes you a little wacky.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the Tren with my clients, I'll go up to 400. Okay. 400 is enough. And when you're talking about 212 guys, you're talking about open guys, you're talking about light heavyweight guys, heavyweights, super heavyweights. Yeah. You know, it's a progression of where they're at, where they're currently at. If you pick them up as a client, if you pick them up when they're young, you know, or they're early in their career, rather, you know, you could monitor the amount of gear they're taking, because now, okay, so we did 400 and we're still growing, right? You barely came down to like that light heavyweight or heavyweight. And it was a struggle to come down. So we know there was a struggle there. So we know in another year, another 6 months, you're going to grow naturally. You're going to grow, you know, with the gear. So we don't need to go from 400 to 500, from 400 to 600. Let's keep it the same. And that's usually with my clients. It is that way, right? Mm. I've prepped 115 amateurs into pros. And not many of them have gone up that much in gear. It was just a matter of progression. And it's just, you have to give it time. Like, did you see the video with Mike Van Wyck?
No, I find him very entertaining and informative, but no.
Yeah, so he said he basically said bodybuilding is easy and blah 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 blah. You have to wake up, you have to train. I mean, bodybuilding is not the hardest thing in the world. It's not working like on an elevator on a bridge. But you know, one thing that he said was just do what you got to do, and things will happen, right? Just if you have the genetics and you're training and you're taking your supplements and you're eating, things will happen. I just think people are very impatient, especially nowadays, and they want everything to happen quickly because they see these videos and people bullshitting, total bullshit, total capping. You know, that's what the kids call it nowadays, right? Total capping on how much gear they've taken in the past. And we've talked about this before, Ron. I've prepped a lot of these guys, man, and I know what they were taking.
So are they usually saying they use less than what they really used, or more?
Oh, they usually say they use more, man. Especially these guys. I think us older guys will admit to, you know what, we use this. Again, you know, it goes back to how I started this video. I don't need to lie to you guys. Like, I'm not making money from creating a steroid that's less than this and blah, blah, blah. You know, so no, I just think I hear some of these guys talk, man, and I'm like, there's no fucking way you were taking 2,500 milligrams. You were 260 pounds with me on stage. If you were taking 2,500 milligrams, what were you, 300 pounds on stage? You weren't, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you find it, you know, it's not crazy, but because of TikTok and Instagram, it's mostly young kids on TikTok. TikTok's like almost all teenagers. Trend has become this godlike substance that they all want to get. I think it's even like an interchangeable term for just steroids in general now. They say, I want to get on trend. Half of them couldn't even tell you what trend is, but they know that they want trend because they see the memes and they see people with their name. Oh, we got these kids. They're called the Trend Twins. Trend must be the best thing. Or, you know, and I'll get like messages like, how much trend should I take? How much trend do you take? They're not asking about anything else. It's become such a fascination among the youth of America and the world. Trenbolone. I'm just flabbergasted at it.
It's such a powerful drug that people want results really fast, right? Mm-hmm. And the interesting part about this, Ron, is that if we go back to, let's say, 5 years ago, where are these influencers now? They're gone, right? They either burnt out, they went to the doctors tell them you're sick, you know, or they really never loved bodybuilding, right? They never really cared. They never really loved themselves for the first part. You know, but they never really never loved bodybuilding. These guys come and go. These guys have come and go. Man, we're both around the same age. And how many people have we seen come and go?
Thousands.
And part of it is because you get burnt out. You don't do things right.
Yeah. Well, a lot of them are doing it they're just doing it for attention and for, you know, their TikToks and their Instagrams. And
shame.
I've seen videos where there was one with a young kid. He couldn't have been more. He was driving, so I assume he was at least 17 or so. But he was almost crying on the way home from the gym because the gym wouldn't let him film anymore. He said, that's half the reason I go there is to film myself. What am I going to do now? I can't film. I don't even want to work out anymore.
I love it.
Wow. Anyway, let's not obsess over that. I'm going to get blasted. Next compound fact.
I think DECA's a good one because both females and males use DECA. I've never liked DECA. It's always been in my mind about the whole DECA dick and it fucks up your libido and shit like that. So I've never really used that much DECA. My libido is perfectly fine, by the way. I'm 50 years old. Right. But DECA and MPP, right? They're both one is faster than the other. MPP being the faster compound of DECA. I think 400 is a good amount. You know, but again, just like trend, you know, you see guys taking 600, 700, 800 a DECA. I mean, how much pinning, how many needles can you put in per day, per week? You know, you're gonna look like it's like a water balloon. Everything's gonna come out of you eventually if you start pinning yourself all over the place. But DECA for guys, I'll say max is 600. You know, but for me the sweet spot was 400.
Okay, so 600 would be a bigger dude. Men's physique guy. Let's say let's theoretically say that's a 260 pound guy.
Yeah.
That's my standard number for big guys on this episode is 260. So if say the guy's 180, he's a men's physique competitor, he's like 5'9", 180. Would that gentleman still need 600 or would he get by on less?
No, so my off cycle for the 2005 USA's and I won the light heavyweight title. We don't like off season, right? We've talked about that before. Our growth season. So our growth season, my growth season in 2005, late 2004, early 2005 included 400 milligrams of DECA, and I was coming in as a heavyweight for that show. So that was me being 240 pounds coming down at 400 milligrams of DECA.
Okay, and women obviously respond to much smaller amounts. So women, I hear a lot of women use DECA, but what is it like 100 to 200 milligrams a week?
Yeah, 100, 200 milligrams a week. You guys have to remember, like, women respond really fast to anything that's DHT based. Women have very low DHT, very low tests in their bodies. Guys have a high amount of DHT, a high amount of tests, a low amount of estrogen. So a lot of these coaches, man, it's not that hard to get a woman jacked. Let's be real. Like, it's just not. It's not that hard to get a woman jacked. It's not that hard to get a woman cut. It's not that hard to stop a woman's estrogen from coming, just like the men, stop with a Arimidex, a Romacin, Letrozole, So you have to be really careful when you deal with women. You have to, especially when they're first starting out. But it's not that hard for females. Females are a lot easier to prep than guys are, especially for most coaches. If you care, then it's the same amount of work. You have to monitor a bunch of stuff, man. But yeah, I mean, women, you got to be careful, man. Like, you see a lot of these women, especially like, you know what? If I take some flack for this, so what? So be it, man. Stand in line, man. I have like 1,000 people behind you. Stand in line, man. It's not gonna get back to me anyway. European and South American and Mexican, those women are usually jacked up the most, and the reason for it is because their coaches give them a large amount. And again, how long is the lifetime? How long are you on stage? How long are you, at your very, very best? They come and go fast.
Yeah, I don't want to pick on divisions, but here I go. Yeah, I see. I don't want to say the country because they'll kill me. But I see a lot of women from a particular country that is producing most of the wellness champions, and from the voices, from the skin texture, from things I see happening, it seems like they're really going crazy with the cycles. So.
Yeah, because they're doing tests, right? So they're doing tests, they're doing propionate, they're doing cypionate. A lot of it is propionate. Well, propionate safer. No, propionate not safer. Propionate gets to the affinity of the actual body a lot faster. So there's more side effects with propionate. Hence the reason why propionate is no longer produced in the United States, right? I think some compound pharmacies might do it, but there's more side effects of propionate. So test milligram per milligram is exactly the same. 1,000 milligrams of propionate is exactly the same as 1,000 milligrams of vanathinate, cypionate, and sustanon. They're just, different timing, right? Propionate's faster. Sustanon has the four testinate that go up and down, but it's the same shit, man. So if you're giving a female 200 milligrams of prop and 200 milligrams of EQ because you want them to look like horses and trending stuff like that, it's the same thing, man. And in the country you're talking about, Brazil, let's keep it real, man.
Okay, you said it. Brazilians, wasn't me, it was him. But
yeah, I'll be honest. I'm an honest guy, man. There's no bullshit about me, man.
I know. Yeah. I don't want to get too off topic, but just talking about how women respond to such smaller amounts. I worked with a master's woman trying to get her pro card a couple of years ago, and off season, a little bit baby cycles, but all her cycles, I never wanted her using much because she was older and I didn't want to see any health problems. I liked her as a person, didn't want to see her have any trouble. 10 milligrams Anavar a day, 200 milligrams Primabol, and that was like an off-season cycle. We went all the way up to 20 milligrams of Anavar a day for a contest prep, stayed at 200 Primabol, and let me tell you, kaboom, shoulders were popping, arms back. It doesn't take much for women. I'm kind of envious of how little they need to use.
Because the minute that the PED and the DHC, because every PED is almost 99.9% of PEDs come from DHC. That's the primary male hormone. So once that goes into the body, they start expanding. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I have figure competitors that take 20 milligrams of Anavar, 20 milligrams of Winstrol, and let's say 200 milligrams of Primo, and their shoulder caps are like this. They're bigger than my shoulder caps, and they're healthy. Their voices are still normal, and that's figure. Wellness. I started prepping wellness last year. I have a couple girls competing this year, and I mean, I'll tell you, one of them is competing soon, right? I'm not going to say what show. She's on 10 milligrams of Anavar, 10 milligrams of Winstrol, 100 milligrams of Primo, and a Romacin 25 milligrams 3 times a week. She's gonna battle for a pro card next year. This is gonna be her first show this year, and that's what she's taking. And her body's changing.
Wow, yeah, it's crazy. But these are male hormones, and they're women, so they don't have these hormones. So you start adding those in, and it's their bodies. Everything responds so well for them. Okay, so we've covered Tren. That was what we just talked about. Deca. What next?
I think we should bring up Anadrol, just because the whole Jay Cutler, Milos, Dorian Yates conversations about 150, 200 milligrams of Anadrol. Do I believe they took that much? Yeah, absolutely. I do believe, because there was guys during my time that were taking it too. But man, Ron, I mean, bro, 50 milligrams of Anadrol will give me massive headaches. It will cut my appetite. You talking about the real anadrels, the Anapolians from Europe.
Turkey.
Yeah, from Turkey. The one, what was the name of the one? Homogeneines from Brazil. And then you're talking about the Unimade from America. I used to get them right from the pharmacy. Like I had Aconex. And I've gone up to 100 milligrams of Anadrol 50. I have, and it's cut my appetite even more headaches. Have I gained weight? Yeah, my first 50 milligrams of Anadrol, I gained 17 pounds like in 2 weeks.
Jeez.
And that was added to the cycle that I was using itself. But yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys. So this is bad, man. And then I'm going to tell this story, and they're probably going to watch this video. And you could ask me anything about what I'm telling Ron right now tonight at the gym or wherever you see me at the gym, right?
Okay.
So there's these two guys training, and one of them goes, "I haven't bled from my nose yet." The other guy goes, "Well, you should double up on the Anadrol." He goes, "Well, I'm already taking 100." He goes, "Well, do 200 because the side effects are not there."
Wow.
Guys, I've never bled from my nose, period. It's insane, Ron, but that's the truth. I'm around a lot of young guys, man, and this is what I hear all day long. 50 milligrams of Anadrol is a lot. It is, especially with real Anadrol. 100 milligrams is a lot more.
I've heard, you've probably heard this too.
Yeah.
This is in your area, New York.
Yeah.
I won't say who, but I've heard of a couple pros from a coach who's no longer alive. He had a horrible reputation. I think you know who I'm talking about. Older guy. He looked like Doc from Back to the Future.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, he was insane.
J.O. were his initials. Anyway, yeah. I've heard he was telling guys to use as much as 800 a day. No, I'm sorry. Eight tabs a day, which would be 400 milligrams.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Oh my God. And when you talk about nosebleeds,
yeah,
that's from the high blood pressure, right? Yeah. So why would you want your blood pressure through the freaking roof? Because I didn't know this till a few years ago. I had no idea. When your blood pressure is high and it's untreated for a while, it destroys your kidneys.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had no idea.
That's what happened to me. Right. So I was walking around 280, 286, 270, 260, 250 with a whole bunch of stress. I mean, not just from bodybuilding, but a whole bunch, other things. And my blood pressure, we did a video on this. I mean, we've talked about this before. I'm very open. I don't lie about anything. I'm very open. I whatever anybody asks me, they ask me. And I'm gonna tell you the truth. So my blood pressure was 220 over 140 over 150. Fucking insane, right? And that eventually ended my bodybuilding career because then when I went to get checked out, my kidneys, my creatinine was high, my blood was high, my GFR was dropping. So that's what made me stop bodybuilding at age 44. I was at my peak at 44. I was 280 something pounds when I came back from Florida in December 2017. And I was fucking big and hard, So yeah, the high blood pressure destroys your kidneys because what happens is your kidneys are like your kidneys is an organ, right? And it has nodules like a sponge. So once the blood starts thickening, these microscopic sponges start opening up. So at first, a little bit is going through, a little bit is going through. This might look a little bit funny to some people, but this is the best example I can give you right now.
Yeah.
So as these start going more, as more blood, more thickening in the blood, and the higher blood pressure starts to open up these nodules, now everything is getting flooded into your system, right? Because your kidneys are no longer filtrating what it needs to filtrate, and that's what increases the creatine level, your creatinine levels, your GFR starts going down, your blood starts going down, and starts destroying the kidneys. So yeah, nosebleeds are not good, man. High blood pressure is not good. Take that Alodobine pill, take the metoprolol pill. Whatever they're gonna tell you to take, go to the doctors, get it checked out, and get it. And bro, and that guy never cared about people's health. I'm sorry.
No.
Never. You cannot care about anybody's health to do that. It's more of a, I'm a coach. I'm getting paid a couple $100 a month. I'm the great, fantastic coach that's destroying everybody, but I don't care, and that's where that comes from.
Well, the late Boston Lloyd, rest his soul, who passed away way too young. That was his first coach. And he told me the very first conversation he had with that gentleman, he said, how much should I use? And the coach's comeback was, how much money do you have? Yeah. So basically, as much as you can afford, just like there's no upper limit. Take as much as you possibly can, which is very irresponsible, very reckless. And He ended. Actually, we could both rattle off a few people that worked with him that their careers ended very, very fast.
Yeah. I worked with Boston. I worked with Boston a couple of times. We never did a show together. Boston never competed much, and Boston, it was always a matter of, well, this is my protocol. I'm like, bro, you gotta like slow this down. And I like Boston. Like I liked him as a person. I think as a bodybuilder, he was very like all of us. Like I was fucking crazy too as a bodybuilder. Let's be honest, right? But I think as a human being, he was a good human. Not I think I know he was a good human being. But yeah, it was always Boston. We need to come down. We need to, we don't need this much or not that big. You need to. That was always the conversation, yeah. And what, that coach wasn't a bad. I don't know if he was a bad guy because you can't be a good guy given that type of.
I only met him once. I couldn't tell you if he was a good guy or a bad guy. It's just health-wise, he was very irresponsible with the way he would handle the protocols for people. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. And some of these people are no longer alive, and a lot of them, their careers ended very, very prematurely. So that tells you can't. PEDs. This is not. They're not harmless.
It's not candy.
They can. Some people have very good luck. I've taken a ton of gear, and I have been very, very, knocking on wood, I've been very, very lucky. But a lot of people I know who did what I did, or even less in some cases, they're dead now. They're in kidney failure. They've had heart attacks. So yeah, be careful. But just to finish the Anadrol thing, they typically come in 50 milligram tabs, hence the name Anadrol 50. How much? What's the upper limit that you think someone could get away with, and for how long before they're going to start having real problems?
See, personally, for me, 50 milligrams put on 17 pounds of muscle. It made me extremely fucking strong. It caused the side effects that it does. So if you ask me, and I've never, I think the highest I've ever gone with a client was like 100 milligrams. And again, he was getting ready for the Arnold. Well, he was on Arnold stage, and no, I'm lying. It was a couple of times that they do 100 milligrams. Yeah. But yeah, 100 milligrams is a lot, man. I mean, I think Jay spoke about going 150, 200, Dorian going 150, 200. But again, they didn't go. I know those guys, they didn't go from 0 to 200 or 0 to 150. It was a slow progress, and it was a decision they made.
I mean, I think Jay said he employed it basically to keep his fullness
during the prep.
For no other reason. That was it. Yeah. And then cut it out a few days out because tremendous water retention, of course.
Right. So I mean, the thing is, it doesn't. So it's not estrogenic. It doesn't convert that way. But but the water comes out pretty quickly, especially if you have anti-estrogens that are going to dry you out faster. Right. It's not, again, it doesn't convert. But if you have anti-estrogens, that's going to dry you out faster, like in a Arimidex, Aromatase, Letrozole, Masteron in there, Proviron in there, stuff like that. It's going to get rid of the water. But yeah, I use Anadrol 50 towards the end of a prep more to keep the fullness while we're dieting.
Right. All right. Anadrol. What next, Fak? What do we got?
So let's talk about Primo.
Oh, wait, hold on. We didn't. Women in Anadrol. Good idea, bad idea?
Horrible idea.
Okay, horrible idea.
It's like Superdrol. Like this year alone, I've gotten maybe 5 clients, female clients that their coaches had them on Superdrol. I'm like, guys don't even take Superdrol, man.
Dude.
You know how insanely toxic Superdrol is. So bad that it was never made a controlled 3 substance because it was that bad. It failed like every test.
Yeah. I mean, it was never produced ever as anything other than an underground drug. I think it originally was, you could legally buy it. It was like a pro-hormone type of thing.
GNC.
Yeah, but that didn't last long. FDA shut that down pretty quick. But
Mark McGuire messed that up.
But yeah, you still hear people using it.
Yeah, yes.
I rudely interrupted you. What was next?
So Primo, I think Primo is a good thing to talk about. I think we've talked about this in past shows. A lot of guys use Primo as a base instead of test, right? So they'll use Primo at a higher, let's say Primo at 800 milligrams, 1,000 milligrams, and test at 700 milligrams, 600 milligrams. That also became very popular, in the Middle East. Oxygen Gym and stuff like that started, being more not apparent because they've always been around, more apparent in the IFBB and the bodybuilding scene. The thing with Primo is that, so milligram per milligram, Primo has a higher protein synthesis rate than test. So you guys have to understand this. Every compound is made for different medical purposes. You know, so Primo is made for higher synthesization of protein, to keep people alive, people that have anorexia, to help them, you know, AIDS patients, burn victims, and stuff like that. Yeah. So to do 1,000 milligrams, so Primo at 1,000 milligrams is much more dangerous than test at 1,000 milligrams. It just is, because it synthesizes the protein more, and there's a higher filtration rate on your kidneys. So Primo is going to destroy your kidneys faster than test is. Test is going to destroy your kidneys at a high amount because of high blood pressure. Primo is going to destroy it because it synthesizes a higher amount of protein, and therefore the filtration rate of your kidneys is being overworked. Not worked, but being overworked. Okay. So Primo with me, 400 milligrams of Primo is my sweet spot. 400, 500. That's the most I've ever given somebody. That is, you know, Primo is considered safe, and it is safe at low amounts, but a higher amount, like I said, you know, is a higher filtration rate. Primo is very good for females. It doesn't cause water retention at low levels. I use Primo for females. I use Primo for, you know, for higher level bikini competitors. 100 milligrams. I use Primo for higher level, you know, or figure competitors, wellness competitors, bodybuilders definitely, because I don't like to use tests. So Primo is really big in female bodybuilders. Yeah. Bodybuilding female wise would be about 200 milligrams. For guys, 400 to 500 milligrams. Primo is both a bulking drug and a cutting drug. It could be used for both. Not much water retention. It's a great PED, right? It's a really great PED. It's just the amount you take, you have to be very careful with, because again, every PED does something different to your body. If not, just take tests, right?
Yeah, I think it's also one of the more expensive PEDs.
Yeah,
and it's one of the most commonly faked.
Yeah. So the reason why Primo is probably the highest counterfeit drug there is, because Primo powder costs about 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times the amount of test powder, you know. And sometimes, you know, you can't even get mad at the person you're getting it from, because they don't know, right? They don't know, like, they don't know they're getting sold tests instead of Primo powder. They don't know they're getting sold Primo oils over test powder. So you have to be really careful. But now we have these testing kits, so roytest.com. They're really good. Before we used to have the lab in Utah that we used to be able to send stuff to. But roytest.com does a really good job. And most people are going to say, well, how about if something is not working and you're going to say it's underdosed, it just doesn't work. I hate hearing that. Well, it's only underdosed, so I'm taking twice the amount. No, it's not working. There's no compound in there if you test it. But yeah, Primo is one of the most counterfeit drugs there is. Secondly was Anavar. I guess, you know what? Let's talk about both of them, because women take Primo and Anavar mostly. That's especially Anavar. Yeah. Anavar also costs a lot of money to buy. Not a lot of money, but it's a higher expense of the powder itself. The powder costs more money. Right. So instead of buying the Anavar powder, if you know where the difference of the powders, where you connect, or the difference of the tabs, capsules, whatever they come in, you know, you hear some of these girls, well, I don't like Anavar because I gained 10 pounds in like 12 days. I'm like, that's impossible. It's impossible. It's not Anavar, it's D-ball, you know, because D-ball is really, really cheap. Yep. Or Anavar is aromatizing in my body. 10 milligrams of Anavar is not going to aromatize in your body. 50 milligrams is not going to aromatize in your body for men. So Anavar and Primobolan are great drugs. I love them both, you know, but you just have to be careful with the amount. Anavar, my sweet spot was 50. You guys have to remember, like, Ron probably remembers this. Remember the BTGs? They were 2.5 milligrams. BTG American brand, 2.5 milligrams. And then, you know, we had the 5 milligrams, we had the 10 milligrams, and then they started jumping up to 50 milligrams, right? Eventually through the underground labs. So when we're taking, and I remember the first time with the 2.5, I was taking 10. I was taking 25, and my friends were like, "You're taking 10? You're taking 10 2.5s?" Yeah. Like, yeah, I want to get big, you know. And that was only 25 milligrams of Anavar. I've 100 milligrams of Anavar is not a lot. I prefer somebody to take 100 milligrams of Anavar over 100 milligrams of Anadrol 50. You know, more quality gains, less water retention, and it's safer. But my sweet spot for most of my clients is 50 milligrams of anabar.
Yeah, and women less than half of that.
Yeah, so women bikini is usually 5 to 10, depending on their genetics. The higher, the more experienced ones are probably taking 20 milligrams. Classic women, which we haven't talked much about, they're 25 milligrams. Wellness competitors, 25 milligrams. Pros, you have to remember some of these females are 160, 170, 180. So like they're women, but they're the same size as middleweight men and like heavyweight men. So even though they're women, they have to take a certain amount. So some women are 25, some women are 50 milligrams, more on the pro side of bodybuilding.
Yeah, you're right. So there are more than a few of them that are in the 170 to 180 range, and you stand next to them, and they're shorter.
Yeah.
So they're not like 5'11" or anything. So they're jacked.
They're jacked.
We didn't cover D-ball, but that would be we're in that realm. We should probably cover that next if we could.
Yeah, so D-ball is another bulk builder. D-ball is not as toxic as Anadrol 50. The difference between one of the main differences between D-ball and Anadrol 50 is that D-ball gives you a sense of well-being, as opposed to Anadrol giving you headaches, not wanting to eat, get you in a bad mood. A lot of bad-tempered bodybuilders, So D-ball is more of a sense of well-being. Puts on a lot of size. A lot of it is water. It converts. You can control it, with anti-estrogens and other stuff. Proviron also is it's not a pure anti-estrogen. It's a pure DHT product, but it blocks the estrogen. I mean, I love Debo. It's one of that was the original cycles, right? It was Test, Primo, and Debo. Came from the 70s. Yeah. Ciba Labs was the first one that created Debo in the United States. I think in the 1950s. Yeah. It's a staple, but I think Debo has gone away the last few years. It's not as popular as it used to be because, again, you have people want more heavy compounds, right? They want Anadrol 50, they want Trend, they want the heavy compounds. And Debo is a great drug. It's just you have to be careful with the amount. High blood pressure, more water retention in your body, higher blood pressure, more problems with your kidneys. So 50 milligrams, I think. Man, Ron, the Anabolex from Dominican Republic. Have you ever seen them?
No.
So Anabolex is called in Spanish. Anabolex. It's 2.5 milligrams of Debo. Oh, wow. But it has pectrain in there, which makes you sleepy, which makes you eat, and then it has another drug in there that makes you sleepy. So it's Debo, a sleep drug, and an eating drug, right? Wow. So it's great, but the reason why I'm talking about this is because 2.5 of Anabole, 10 of them, which is 25 milligrams, or even 5 of them, would put on an immense amount of size of us when we were younger. When guys are running 50, 75, 100 milligrams of D-ball, us being younger, we used to put on 20 pounds in less than a month, and through 2 or 3 weeks on real D-ball, on low megs. The Thailandian ones, remember the ones that used to come in the little canister?
Yeah, the ones from Thailand.
Thailand, yeah. What were they called?
Anapolin?
Anapolin was.
No, that was a 50. I can't remember. They came in these big tubs. They were huge.
Yeah.
They were like little diamond shapes, I think.
Yeah. They came like in pre-workout tubs, like the little EA tubs, and they were 5 milligrams. I remember being on a counter next to somebody who was a pro bodybuilder at the time. He's a pro bodybuilder. He's a really good pro bodybuilder, and he went like this. And I looked at him. I'm like, man, I said, how much is that? He goes, I don't know. I just take a handful of it.
They say that Arnold used to do that too, the handful.
Yeah, a lot of guys did. That D-ball is a great drug. I would never give D-ball to a female. Definitely not contest, pre-contest, and definitely not off season. It's not worth it. I'd rather do or Tyranobol or Anadrol. Or Anavar.
All right, we have time for one more compound if you got one.
Yeah, so let's talk about GH.
Okay.
You hear a lot of guys talking about or saying rather, I'm taking 10 IUs, 15 IUs, 20 IUs of GH. Man, go get your blood work checked. Check your IGF-1 levels, check your GH serum levels. First of all, if you're taking that much GH, you must have a shitload of fucking money, because if it's not real GH, it's probably not working. And if it's real GH is expensive, especially now. Like a Serrano kit is like $500. And that's I mean, around, I could get it for that much because it's personal and it's me, right? So, but that people paying $600, $700 for it.
Yeah.
Amotropins are 36 IUs. They're running for like $300, $350. You have a lot, so it's very expensive, real GH. So to give you an idea of my GH usage, when I was taking 4 IUs, my IGF-1 levels were in the 400s. So we're like 405, 410. So I bumped it up to 6 IUs, right? We're talking about the Serrano 16 IU bottles, 7 bottles in the kit. So I bumped it up to 6 IUs. And then it was going around, my IGF-1 levels were 450, 460. And then again, like every bodybuilder, because we all done it when we were young. Fuck it, I have like 9 kits in the refrigerator. let me take a bottle per day. So a bottle per day was 16 IUs, and then when I got my blood work done every 4 months, it was like 470, 475. So 16 IUs of GH, of somatropin GH is my IGF-1 levels and my GH serum levels were identical to where they were 6 IUs. And then from 4 to 6 IUs, it was so minimum that it wasn't even enough to to even take that much. So, and for example, now I run. So right now, I've been off of cycles since 2018. I did a mini cycle this past summer, which nobody doesn't believe what I did, but you can ask the guys that I work out with. I was doing 250 milligrams of tests every 7 days. I was doing 100 milligrams of Primobolan every 7 days. I was doing 10 milligrams of Anavar every day. I was doing bikini cycle, man. We would laugh and they're like, yeah, we put it on weight. I'm like, yeah, we're my bikini cycle. And then with the GH, I was doing 2 IUs of GH. Within a month, I put on around close to 30 pounds.
Wow.
It was close to 30 pounds. Again, you could ask the guys who I work out in the gym. I post them all the time on Instagram. So please DM them and ask them whatever you want, But yeah, GH is something that people exaggerate on. People take too much of it. It's not the end all. It's not. If you have $1,000, you're not gonna buy $500 kit and $500 of PEDS. Go and buy your cycle, because GH is good added on to the cycle itself. But those people that are taking all that GH, it's your body's not gonna take it in. I've never seen any. I've known people that take 20 IUs. I do have money, and I've never seen the IGF-1 levels higher than 470, 475.
I'm glad you said that, because we have this more is better mentality, obviously, and something that's that expensive. And most people, they're not being supported by someone in Dubai or Kuwait where it's free. If you're breaking your bank and you're putting God forbid you have a family, you're putting them in financial distress for growth hormone. I hope they hear this, and I hope they realize I don't need 15, 20 IUs a day. It's not giving me any great advantage.
4 IUs is enough to put your IGF-1 levels in the 400s. And
women, I'm guessing 2 IUs.
Yeah, well, it depends on the weight, right? Because we're talking about body weight. So if a female is 140, 150 pounds, she's a welterweight pen, right? It's the same type. It's the same type of. It would be the same type of GH usage. Of course, the drugs would be different, because some drugs, hurt women more than they hurt men. But GH wise would be the same. A bikini girl that's already taking GH, I would say 1 IU twice a day. Wellness, women's physique, we're talking about 1.5 twice a day, so 3 IUs. The bigger girls, 4 IUs, right? The bigger ladies, 4 IUs, but no more than 4 IUs. Even when I was at my biggest, and I've actually settled down and had my mind straight about, what, I've checked all this stuff. I know what works, and I've gone higher, I've gone lower, and I'm going lower now, and I'm getting bigger because I'm eating more food, I'm lifting more weight. I settled at 4 IUs per day. So when I was at my biggest, like again, 280 pounds, I was taking 4 IUs.
There you have it, straight from the horse's mouth. We've been talking about horses a lot on this episode. So we're out of time. We have a 1 hour time limit on StreamYard when we're recording. But thank you, Fak. You're going to Orlando. I'll see you there.
I'm trying to. I actually got a VIP pass, but I got to see if I make the traveling and everything else, man. I just got the VIP pass last night. It was offered to me.
Cool, man. All right, so guys, please give us some comments, suggestions for things you want to hear Fak talk about on future shows. Leave those in the comments. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, turn notifications, do all that great stuff. Fak, we appreciate you so much doing this, sharing this knowledge, and trying to get a little bit of common sense and logic into this, because people can be nuts, as we know. And this is your health and your body and your life and your longevity you're playing with, guys. So please be careful out there. And that's it. I got to go.
Question, Ron. They could DM me anytime, man. Just DM me and I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you exactly, you know, what should be done, what shouldn't be done. You know, anything extra you're going to hear from somebody else online.
Well, that's our show. Thanks for watching Fact Attack, and we will see you right here next time.
Brought to you by Muscle Mints. Muscle Mints is the creator of Carnivore Pure Beef Protein Isolate. Beef builds muscle, and Carnivore is the world's #1 selling beef protein.
Hey, did you like that video? Smash that like button, subscribe to MD, and please comment down below. Thanks for watching.